Welcome to section 9.18, part 3. This is the 90-second session of the CISSP exam prep series. This part closes out mobile security, focusing on credentials, deployment models, and the policy details that make them work. In this session, we'll cover the policy side of mobile devices. How do you handle the flood of credentials? What makes text messaging a weak spot? Which deployment models let devices onto your network? Who owns the data, the support, and the updates? How do you handle forensics, privacy, and legal exposure? What does mobility do to your network design? And which hardware and connection features deserve extra caution? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because the hard part of mobile security is rarely the technology. Picture a growing company that lets everyone use their own phones with no written rules. When a device is lost, no one knows who wipes it, who owns the data, or who pays for the replacement. A clear deployment policy answers those questions before the crisis, not during it. That policy is your real control. So how do you handle the flood of credentials on mobile devices? With credential management, people juggle countless logins. So a credential manager, also called a password vault, securely stores them all behind one master credential, ideally a multi-factor one. Some can even autofill logins for apps and sites. The vault itself is encrypted, and good ones stretch your master password into a strong key using proven key derivation methods so it resists cracking. Think of it as a single, heavily guarded keyring instead of a pocket full of loose keys you keep losing. What makes text messaging a weak spot? Because it is both useful and easily abused. Standard texting services, whether basic messages, multimedia, or the richer modern format, all double as attack vectors for phishing sent by text and messaging spam. Texting can also serve as a second authentication factor, but a code sent by text is the weakest option and should give way to any stronger second factor you have. Keep messaging apps updated and keep sensitive content out of them entirely. Think of a text message like a postcard. Convenient, but anyone along the way might read it or forge one. Which deployment models let devices onto your network? There are 4 common ones, and they trade cost against control. In bring your own device, employees use their personal phones, which is cheap and popular, but the least secure, since the organization has little control and mixes company and personal data. Choose your own device narrows that to an approved list, easing some risk but raising messy questions about who pays. Corporate-owned, personally enabled has the company buy devices that workers also use personally, giving you control while still commingling data. And the corporate-owned, business-only strategy keeps devices strictly for work, which is the most secure and cleanly separates work from personal life at the cost of carrying a second phone. Think of it as a spectrum from a free-for-all to a lockdown company car. Who owns the data, the support, and the updates on these devices? Your policy has to say so plainly. Data ownership gets thorny when personal and business data mix, especially when a lost device is wiped and takes an employee's photos with it, so define ownership and require backups up front. Support ownership settles who repairs or replaces a broken device, the company or the individual. And patch management spells out who installs updates, whether the organization tests them first, and which operating system versions are even allowed. Think of a company car again. You decide in advance who fuels it, who fixes it, and who is liable when something goes wrong. How do you handle forensics, privacy, and legal exposure? Deliberately, because these get emotional fast. For forensics, users must accept that a security incident may mean their device is examined or even seized, and company-owned devices can carry a master account to allow that access. Privacy runs the other way, since a personal device used for work loses much of its privacy, and workers may have to accept monitoring even off the clock. Legal exposure rises too, because personal devices in business use increase liability and the odds of a leak, and an acceptable use policy should spell out the boundaries. Think of it as a prenuptial agreement for the device. Everyone agrees to the terms while things are calm, so no one is shocked when they are not. What does mobility do to your network design? It can strain everything. If every worker brings a device, the number of endpoints on your network can double overnight, forcing you to plan for more addresses, more intrusion monitoring, and more bandwidth. Most of these devices are wireless, so your Wi-Fi has to handle real congestion and interference. In short, the convenience of mobility carries a hidden infrastructure bill. Think of adding a second rush hour to a road that was already busy. Without new lanes, everything slows to a crawl. Which hardware and connection features deserve extra caution? A handful of them punch above their weight. Onboard cameras and microphones can quietly capture confidential information, so policy should govern where they may be used. And geofencing can even disable a camera on company grounds. Tethering and hotspots let a device become an unauthorized bridge to the internet, sidestepping your filtering, so they should be blocked inside the facility. Contactless payments are convenient, but can be cloned unless they require a confirmation or an unlocked device. And SIM cloning lets an attacker hijack a victim's phone service, so physical control of the device and a service lock with the carrier both matter. Think of each of these as a small, unguarded gate in an otherwise solid wall. So let's bring it together. Credential managers tame the flood of logins, while text messaging stays a weak channel to keep sensitive data out of. The 4 deployment models trade cost against control, from bring your own device up to business only. Your policy must fix data ownership, support, and updates, and address forensics, privacy, and legal exposure before trouble hits. Mobility strains your network design, and cameras, microphones, tethering, payments, and SIM cloning each need targeted caution. Wrap all of it in clear policy, and mobile devices become a managed strength rather than a standing liability. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on rucloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session.